message.
What?
Wait, it's your time for your message.
Oh, I was just like getting my walk-up song ready. Like just jamming. Airplanes.
Okay, it's
No?
We
gotta go now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I probably should take the headphones out maybe.
Probably.
Okay.
Alright,
Can we
ready?
put that down? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Alright, this is refrain, week 3, take 1. Mark?
Well, hey, we're in the middle of a series where we're looking at this word refrain. And it's been a few weeks now, and we've kind of learned that it's a music term meaning a repetitive phrase that just appears throughout a song. And so in the spirit of this, I went way back to January of 2016, and I pulled up our road trip playlist that I created for Ashlyn and I on our road trip, where I went from Phoenix to San Diego. For me, this was the last year of college, and by this point, I knew Ashlyn was going to be the one that I wanted to marry. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And in that vein, I wanted to create like the very best, most amazing playlist that included songs that we both loved. Songs that we could remember forever as we drove up the iconic California State Route 1. And this is by far one of the favorite trips that I've ever taken with Ashlyn. We came when there wasn't a whole lot of traffic at all. It was the perfect weather in January, sunny and 65. We got to see so many picturesque views. We got to explore a whole new area of the country together. Of course, eat some good food like breakfast burritos. There's just something about a breakfast burrito in San Diego that it just is on a whole nother world. It was great. We even dreamed about the future, about getting a dog together at the dog beach. And every time I hear this song, it takes me back to driving up that iconic road and conversations we had where we dreamed about the future.
Once I was 7 years old, my mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old.
Another song that brought me back was We Are Free by Jordan Howerton Band. This was a band that played at Move during the summer camp that I went to in high school, and every time I hear it, I'm transported back into that time, that week of Move, but also that week after Move, where I was driving, it was 90 degrees, the sun was beginning to set, I'm on 224 in my dad's Mazda Miata convertible, the top is down, and I'm just remembering all of the great moments from this past week. Basically, the perfect summer afternoon, blaring music while driving, and it sounded like this. The last song for now is a song by 21 Pilots, and it just takes me immediately back to school, Johnson University, playing on our Ultimate Frisbee club team, but more specifically, takes me back to late nights on Friday, playing a version of Ultimate called Goaltimate. Just think of like half-court Ultimate. And we were just in the commons outdoors between the two dorms, and there was a speaker playing music. There's a beautiful Smoky Mountains around, and it just brings back all of the strong friendships that I developed during that time, and just even the fresh air smell that's from just being in the mountains. I know it's dire my time today. I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought, cause somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. Each of these songs just take me back in time and unlocks a memory for me. Their refrains take me back, and I bet that you have songs like this too that just take you back to a particular moment in your life. Maybe it's a happy one, or maybe even it's a sad one. And I shared 3 happy moments, but I also have particular songs that take me back into time so that I don't love remembering. All of these moments also have refrains of their own. We have words and thoughts that form their own refrains that play on repeat in our heads. Refrains that drive us in our own lives, that give us, in some ways, our operating system, or OS. So in one way, we want to ask ourselves, what are those refrains of our lives? What are we listening to or doing or having go over and over again in our minds? What is just stuck in our heads? What attitudes appear because of these refrains? Because when I look back on my own life through middle and high school, through college, and even sometimes now, the refrains I hear in my head are forces that have been quite powerful in my life, that have shaped, in a lot of ways, who I am today. And if we're getting real, I was hearing refrains like this, like work harder, be more productive, or perform, perform, perform. And if we're getting brutally honest, I would often hear the refrain of only when those things are accomplished, then I could be worthy of being loved. And The refrains of those seasons led me on this track that really quite led to exhaustion. What are the refrains in your own life? If you could put words to the thoughts that swirl around your head, what would they be? If you could pause and take a close look at the desires of your heart, what you truly want, what would those refrains be? I know that this is not an exhaustive list at all, but maybe this might trigger what your refrains are. Maybe it's, I need to be happy all the time. If I'm not happy, what can I do to make myself feel good right now? Or maybe it's, everything needs to be perfect. My grades, my performances, my competitions, everything. I just can't mess up. Or maybe it is, where am I compared to other people? Am I doing better than them? Am I doing everything to look good to everyone? Am I pleasing everyone around me? Or maybe it's, there's just too much going on right now in the world. How can I help make the world a better place? Or maybe for some of us, it's, where's my next hustle? Am I doing enough? Am I enough? But here's the thing. Here's the cool thing. Here's the hope that we have today. We don't have to stay there in the cycle. This is not something that's new to us or new to humans. Having these thoughts swirl around and having negative thought cycles isn't new. And we have an opportunity to combat these cycles, these lies, with truth. And this truth becomes light that lights up the darkness, that begins to unspin, unravel the lies that we've twisted in our lives. That truth can be even more powerful refrains that soon drown out the negativity. Powerful reminders that center us back to who we are. And this is exactly what the Psalms have been, that we've been going through these last couple installments are. These last couple messages have all been about these Psalms of ascent, these refrains. And these Psalms luckily were recorded for us so that we can take a look at these words that were spoken and sang as communities as they would travel to where God was. Their version of going to meet God and to be in His presence, they would have these songs, these refrains on repeat as reminders of everything God had done for them as individuals, but also them as a community. And it would begin to, not only individually, but as a community, combat the negative refrains, the lies that were in their own lives. So for us, as we continue to hear the words on these pages of scriptures, let us go ahead and posture ourselves in a way that just allows us to be open to what God's going to do as God uses the words from these Psalms to shape us, to transform us. And we're just going to take a moment and we're going to all stand and then sit in silence for a little bit. And then we're going to be able to receive these words from Psalm 127. So let's go ahead and stand up right now, like literally stand up. Let's put our phones away. Let's take our earbuds out if they might be in. And let's just go ahead and be ready to receive what God might be telling you today. And today's refrain is going to come from Psalm 127. So let's go ahead and stand up and let's go ahead and hear these words. Unless it is the Lord who builds the house, the builder's work is pointless. Unless it is the Lord who protects the city, the guard on duty is pointless. It is pointless that you get up early and stay up late, eating the bread of hard labor, because God gives sleep to those He loves. No doubt about it, the children are a gift from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a divine reward. The children born when one is young are like arrows in the hand of a warrior. The person who fills a quiver full of them is truly happy. They won't be ashamed when arguing with their enemies in the gate. Let's go ahead and grab a seat. And I'm guessing when you hear this, you're like, Sean, this has nothing to do with my life. I don't build houses. I don't have a guard on duty. I don't have children. How will these words from the book of Psalms help me with my own refrain? And here's the deal. Stick with me, because although those things are more than likely true, these words have some powerful principles that once we understand these words in the right context, apply to us today. Sure, you don't build houses. You probably don't have children. You don't have a guard on duty, but these words have huge, meaningful implications for us. And these words are actually attributed and written by King Solomon, one of the kings of Israel, and he was known throughout the world during his day as just being very wise. And in this psalm, that he wrote, he created this beautiful masterpiece, this beautiful artwork, because in the original Hebrew, he took the time to be able to create 2 stanzas filled with the same exact amount of syllables in the original Hebrew. This truly was this masterpiece that helps us begin to see that God needs to be at the core of whatever we do. Because if we take a deeper look, we see that building the house is actually a metaphor for us for this idea, the act of creating. And that's something we all do, from creating TikToks to creating a snack of mac and cheese. And when we look at the phrase guard on duty, it actually goes back to this idea of protecting what's already been created, protecting nature. It might even be babysitting your younger brother or sister, but protecting what's around us, what's already been created. In a lot of ways, Solomon's trying to say between the act of creation and the act of protection, which is really everything, whether it be creating or protecting, God needs to be at the core of what we do, the very center. Or to put this in another way, if we were to rewrite this psalm in maybe some modern words, it might sound a little bit like this. Unless we let God enter into the center of our striving, we will simply be surviving instead of thriving. Let me repeat that again, because this has just huge implications for us. Unless we let God enter into the center of our striving, we will simply be surviving instead of thriving. And I think this is powerful because it hits at 2 misconceptions that tend to pop up when we talk about, is this my job or is this God's job? Is this supposed to be all on me or is this supposed to be all on God? And we often fall in one of these 2 camps, this idea that God does nothing and we do everything. Or this idea that God does everything and we do nothing. And in this psalm, this refrain is trying to help us see that God is at the core of what happens. He's in the middle of all of this, and he's able to do far more than we ask or imagine, but at the same time, our effort matters too, because we're not simply called just to sit and pray all the time and just trust that God's gonna take care of everything. Sure, God will take care of things, but we also need to put forth our own effort, and God will bless when we put him at the core of what we do. It's really freeing when we lean into this third camp instead of getting caught into these 2 different polarized camps. When we begin to see and experience this, we begin to act out and begin to learn what one of my mentors told me back in college that just still is with me today. That you are not as high as your highest highs or low as your lowest lows. You're not as good as your best or last win. And you're also not worse than your last loss. So what does this look like practically for us today? First, we need to learn God's voice and to hear his truth. And that often just begins with us opening our ears and beginning to hear what God says about us. Right now, if you had to choose which voice is louder between the negative refrains going on in your own head and God's voice and what God says about you, which one would you say is louder? I recently learned about some of the training the Secret Service does to identify counterfeit currency. And as you can imagine, there's just a whole bunch of training that you need to complete before getting your assignment. And so in that training, when do you think they look at and study counterfeit bills? This is all about identifying counterfeit bills. Where do you think that fits in? Go ahead, turn to your neighbor, maybe drop a comment if you're watching later with what you think. Is it the first day? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 6 months into the training? Here's the deal. Crazily enough, they never look at counterfeit currency. Their training focuses so much on getting to know the real thing so that they know the real thing implicitly, that they never have to look at a fake because they automatically see it because they know what the real thing looks like. And I think that's the first step for us when it comes to knowing God's voice, when it becomes to know the truth. If we zero in and know the real thing so well, knowing God's truth immediately, we can begin to spot the lies as soon as they pop up. But here's the deal. Knowing God's truth is not enough. We also have to take the second step of believing it. It has to leave our brains and become a part of our heart and our soul, a part of who we are. We got to listen to it first and allow that voice to grow louder, but we also have to believe that voice. Believe that the truth, that God's voice is bigger than the lies, bigger than the refrains that we've built up in our own lives. And lastly, we need to create rhythms in our own life that allow God's refrains to be louder than the refrains that go on in our heads and go on around us. See, as human beings, unfortunately, it's inevitable. We're gonna mess up. There are gonna be times that we fall for the lie instead of the truth, even though we know the difference. There's gonna be times where life's just so tough that we're gonna fall back to what's familiar, even when it's not true, even when it's not helpful. And it's because of this that we need to be able to create practices and rhythms that begin to help us continually sync up with God and His truth. Practices like reading the Bible, like praying, like connecting with other believers in groups, which is what we're about to do, serving others. I mean, there could be so many things. It could be times when we're just spent in silence, listening to God. It could be times where we look to not be seen and just simply help people because we want to help them. I mean, there's so many things that we could do here, but here's the thing, everyone's a little bit different, and we need to create those right rhythms and practices that allow us to reconnect with God. And so we're gonna have some time in groups in just a few minutes to be able to figure out what that might be for you, how we can do this together as a community. But as we wrap up, I wanna bring just one more song back from my middle school and high school years. And for this, we're gonna end this message a little bit differently than normal. No one's gonna get up on the platform when I wrap up. Instead, we're gonna head directly into groups. And you're gonna see some directions on the screen when it's time to do that. But when that time comes and what we're about to do here, I just want to invite you into a time of silence and reflection. And let this refrain speak to you. And group leaders, when you get to your groups, you're gonna be the one that can break that silence. See, this song was so instrumental for me during my middle and high school years. This song is called By Your Side by 10th Avenue North. And it's written as if Jesus is speaking these song lyrics to you, to me, to us. And I hope that they can be as impactful for you as they were for me, as Jesus invites you to cease striving, to quit trying to earn and work your way through life, and instead simply invites you to notice that Jesus is right by your side, that He loves you the same no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you win or how much you lose. So let's listen in and allow this to be the refrain that sticks with us today.
Why are you striving these days? Why are you trying to earn grace? Why are you crying? Let me lift up your face. Just don't turn away. Why are you looking for love? Why are you still searching as if I'm not enough? To where will you go, child? Tell me, where will you run? To where will you run? 'Cause I'll be by your side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, and please don't fight these hands that are holding you. And my hands are holding you. Look at these hands.